mother walks to her car after work. 30 seconds later, she's dead. Shot execution style behind her vehicle while her son waits at home for dinner. But here's what makes this different from every other parking garage murder you've heard about. This wasn't random. Someone had been planning Latia Stewart's death for weeks, studying her routine, learning her schedule. And that morning, they left her a message that would lure her straight into their trap. May 3rd, 2023. Latia finishes her shift at the Marriott Hotel in downtown St. Louis. She's tired, ready to go home, completely unaware that her killer is already waiting in the parking garage. For 3 years, she's been hunting the person who murdered her son Gregory. Today, that person is hunting her back. The trap was set 12 hours earlier. Someone planted a street sign at Gregory's memorial, pointing like an arrow toward a house Latia had suspected all along. Not dropped by accident, not blown there by wind, planted, deliberately, by someone who wanted her to follow it. Latia knocked on doors for 3 years, searching for her son's killer, but the wrong door knocked back. If you've ever lost someone and felt the system failed you, hit subscribe and comment doors matter. Or maybe you think grieving mothers should just stay quiet and accept injustice. Go ahead, tell us why you won't subscribe to stories that demand accountability. That morning, Latia's mother Minnie finds the sign first. She calls her daughter, voice shaking, because she knows this isn't vandalism. This is communication. Someone finally wants to talk, but they're too scared to do it face to face. Latia races to the memorial and sees exactly what her mother saw. A standard city street sign, the kind marking every intersection in America, positioned with military precision. It points directly at a house 3 blocks away. The same house she's walked past hundreds of times, wondering if her son's killer lives inside. She calls police immediately, reports it as evidence. The officer who takes her call sounds bored, treats it like kids playing pranks. But Latia knows better. After 3 years of dead ends and broken promises, someone is finally ready to give her answers. Her last conversation with Crime Stoppers happened 6 hours before her death. She's excited, hopeful, tells them she feels closer to the truth than ever before. The representative will later say Latia sounded like a woman who believed justice was coming. She was right. Justice was coming. Just not the kind she expected. May 28, 2020, 11:30 p.m. Gregory Stewart gets a phone call that will end his life in the next 60 seconds. His friend needs help with something outside. Can't handle it alone. Needs Gregory to step out of his house on Bond Avenue in East St. Louis. Gregory doesn't hesitate because that's who he is. The kind of man who drops everything when someone needs him. He walks outside into the night air, completely trusting, completely unaware that someone has been waiting in the shadows for exactly this moment. The friend who called him stands there helpless as a figure emerges from the darkness. Gun already drawn. No words exchanged. No demands made. Just cold, calculated execution. The gunshots shatter the quiet neighborhood like thunder. Gregory collapses on his own driveway. The concrete he played on as a child now soaking up his blood. He fights for every breath. Fights to stay alive for his kids. Fights to make it back inside his house. But the damage is too severe. The wounds too deep. Multiple neighbors heard those shots. Multiple people saw what happened. But when police arrive asking questions, suddenly everyone becomes deaf and blind. The same community that watched Gregory grow up now watches him die and pretends they saw nothing. Fear keeps their mouths shut while his killer walks free. 3 years before his death, Gregory was on the verge of something incredible. His rap career was finally taking off. Local producers were paying attention, and his music was getting played in clubs across St. Louis. He'd spent countless hours in recording studios, perfecting his sound, writing lyrics that came straight from his heart and his experiences growing up in East St. Louis. His unreleased tracks sit on hard drives now. Songs that will never be heard, verses that will never be performed. Gregory had the talent, the drive, the connections he needed to make it big. He was networking with the right people, building his brand, planning tours that would take him across the country. But Gregory's most important role wasn't rapper or artist. It was father. He had 2 children who worshiped the ground he walked on. Kids who thought their daddy could do anything. They'd sit in the studio with him sometimes, watching him work, dreaming about the day they'd see him on television or hear his songs on the radio. Those children will never see their father perform on stage. They'll never hear him rap about overcoming struggles and chasing dreams. All they have now are memories and a few recordings on someone's phone. Gregory's dreams died with him on that concrete, but his children's dreams of having their father died too. The phone call that changed everything came at 2 a.m. Latia Stewart wakes up to news that no mother should ever receive. Her youngest son, her baby, has been shot. By the time she reaches the hospital, Gregory is fighting for his life on machines that beep and hum through the night. 24 hours later, those machines go silent. Gregory Stewart is pronounced dead, and Latia Stewart transforms from grieving mother into something else entirely. Something fierce and relentless and absolutely unwilling to let her son's killer disappear into the night. The woman who raised Gregory to help others now dedicates her life to hunting his murderer. Her first Facebook post goes up within days of the funeral. Simple words that carry the weight of a mother's broken heart. Someone knows who killed my son. Someone saw what happened. Please come forward. The post gets shared dozens of times, but the responses are mostly prayers and condolences. No real information. No actual help. Detective Props meets with Latia in those early weeks, assures her that Gregory's case is a priority, promises that they're following every lead. He seems genuine, seems committed to finding answers. But as days turn into weeks and weeks turn into months, those reassurances start feeling hollow. The investigation stalls, while Gregory's killer remains free. Detective Props sits across from Latia in those first weeks after Gregory's murder, making promises that sound good in the moment but crumble under the weight of reality. He tells her the case is active, that they're pursuing multiple leads, that someone will be arrested soon. His confidence feels reassuring until months pass, and those promises turn into excuses. The crime scene tells a story that investigators can't read. No shell casings recovered despite multiple gunshots fired. No fingerprints on anything that matters. No DNA evidence left behind by a killer who knew exactly how to cover their tracks. The shooter vanished like smoke, leaving behind only Gregory's blood on concrete and a family demanding answers that don't exist. East St. Louis becomes a neighborhood of selective blindness overnight. People who were outside that night suddenly remember being indoors.
A family is still looking for answers a year after their son was shot and killed. Fox 2's Michaela McGee spent the day with his parents as they rallied for his memory and information on his killer. Michaela.
Thanks, Kim. We're no longer over at that lot where Gregory Stewart was murdered 1 year ago, but it was an emotional sight to see his friends and family all gather together in his memory and march for justice. His parents still fighting to this day for his killer to get put behind bars.
Love you, Gregory Stewart.
We're going to fight until we take our last breath or until we get justice.
On May 30th last year, Gregory Stewart was shot on the 2400th block of Bond Avenue in East St. Louis. He died from his wounds the following day. 1 year later, his family is still seeking answers and justice.
My son and our family deserve answers and justice and closure. And these people, they shouldn't be walking around on the streets. They need to be held accountable for what they did to my son.
Latia Stewart and her husband, Paul, are begging those who witnessed their son's murder or anyone with information to come forward so they can catch the person or group responsible.
You know, I just can't understand for the life of me why these people won't come forward. You know, imagine if it were your loved one, you would be doing the same thing and want justice for your family. You want people to speak up. And I just can't understand why they won't.
Latia and Paul have taken full custody of Stewart's 5 children. As they walk the grounds where their dad was shot, emotions flared.
You see his daughter over there crying? These people in East St. Louis don't care nothing about that. These police don't care nothing about that hollering. You hear me? It's corrupted.
Cortez Rice is a civil rights activist from Minnesota and was a close companion to George Floyd. He traveled to East St. Louis to support the Stewart family during the rally in March.
And just advocate for families, you know, seeking justice for the families, you know, for us against stolen lives, for against police brutality, gun violence, and racism. So I'm here for Gregory Stewart's family. That's what I'm here for.
Not only my son, I advocate and speak for everyone else that's lost their loved ones. And we need help in solving these murders in East St. Louis. They need help.
Today's rally was in honor of Gregory Stewart, but this is not the only unsolved murder in East St. Louis, let alone the St. Louis area. As I was talking to people at the rally, they were telling me how sick they are, tired of losing the people they love and feeling like no one cares. The Stewarts are asking if you have any information regarding their son's murder to contact authorities or call Crime Stoppers. Live in East St. Louis, I'm Michaela McGee, Fox 2 News.
Neighbors who heard the gunshots claim they were watching television too loud to notice. The same community that raised Gregory now protects his killer through strategic amnesia and convenient deafness. Latatia's phone calls to detective props become increasingly desperate as weeks turn into months without progress. Each conversation follows the same script. He's working the case, following leads, waiting for forensics results that never seem to arrive. Her frustration builds with every empty promise, every meeting that produces nothing but more waiting. When the police fail her, Latia becomes her own detective. She launches a YouTube channel dedicated to Gregory's case, speaking directly to the camera with the raw emotion of a mother who refuses to let her son become another unsolved statistic. Her videos get hundreds of views, dozens of comments, but most importantly, they get attention from people who knew Gregory. Her Facebook group grows from family members to friends to strangers who believe in justice. She posts photos of Gregory, details about the night he died, pleas for anyone with information to come forward. The group becomes a digital investigation headquarters where tips get shared, theories get discussed, and Latia coordinates her own search for truth. Street sources start reaching out through private messages and anonymous phone calls. People who were too scared to talk to police find courage to whisper secrets to a grieving mother. They tell her about a car that was parked near Gregory's house that night, a vehicle that didn't belong to anyone in the neighborhood. They describe seeing someone unfamiliar lurking around the area hours before the shooting. The mysterious car becomes Latatia's obsession. She drives through East St. Louis looking for it, asking neighbors if they remember seeing it, posting descriptions on social media, hoping someone will recognize it. This single detail gives her hope that Gregory's killer made a mistake, left behind evidence that police missed or ignored. 6 months pass without a single arrest. Latia appears on local news stations, radio shows, podcasts, anywhere that will give her a platform to keep Gregory's story alive. She speaks with the desperation of a mother watching her son's case grow cold while his killer walks free. Each interview is a plea for justice that falls on deaf ears. Grandmother May joins the fight when she realizes the police aren't coming to save them. She starts her own campaign, reaching out to community leaders, organizing prayer vigils, demanding meetings with city officials. 2 generations of women united by grief and fueled by the system's failure to protect their family. Anonymous tips flood in through Crime Stoppers, each one raising hopes that get crushed when they lead nowhere. False confessions from attention seekers, accusations against innocent people, wild theories that waste precious time and resources. The tip line becomes a source of frustration rather than breakthrough. Another dead end in a case full of them. Deshaun King Wilson should have been behind bars when he murdered Latia Stewart. In 2017, he was sentenced to 6 years in prison for tampering with a motor vehicle and resisting arrest. 6 years that should have kept him locked away until 2023. But the system had other plans for a man who would become a serial killer. Wilson walked out of prison early, back onto the streets of St. Louis, with a grudge against the world and violence coursing through his veins. By 2022, he was arrested again, this time for assault, armed criminal action, and unlawful possession of a firearm. These weren't minor infractions or misdemeanors. These were serious felonies committed by a man with a proven track record of escalating violence. The judge had a choice: keep a dangerous man locked up or trust him to show up for trial. Despite Wilson's extensive criminal history, despite the violent nature of his charges, despite every red flag waving in the courtroom, he was released on personal recognizance. No bail required. Just a promise to appear in court that he had no intention of keeping. Wilson made the Marriott parking garage his home, sleeping rough in the same place where he would eventually commit murder. Hotel security knew about him, had chased him out multiple times, but he kept coming back. The garage offered shelter from the weather and darkness to hide his activities. It also gave him the perfect vantage point to study Latatia's routine. Wilson's criminal behavior followed a predictable pattern that everyone ignored until it was too late. Each arrest was more violent than the last. Each release gave him more confidence to escalate. He went from property crimes to assault to armed violence, and the system kept giving him chances to hurt more people. Street sources in East St. Louis whispered Wilson's name in connection with Gregory's murder long before police made the connection. He was known in the neighborhood, had been seen around Bond Avenue in the days leading up to the shooting. People who lived there knew he didn't belong, knew he was trouble, but fear kept them from speaking to authorities. Wilson had been spotted near Gregory's house multiple times in the weeks before the murder. Neighbors remembered seeing him walking the streets, studying houses, asking questions about who lived where. He was gathering intelligence, planning something, but nobody wanted to get involved until it was too late to save Gregory's life. The system that should have protected the community instead enabled a killer. Every time Wilson was arrested and released, every time charges were dropped or reduced, every time he walked out of court instead of into a cell, the system gave him permission to hurt more people. Latia and Gregory paid the price for judicial incompetence. May 4th, 2023. Wilson shoots two men in the Marriott parking garage, the same place where he murdered Latia the day before. The victims, ages 32 and 33, are walking to their cars when Wilson approaches and opens fire without warning. One man takes a bullet to the forearm, the other to his torso and leg. Both survive, but barely. Latatia's murder happened 24 hours earlier in the exact same location. Wilson waited for her to finish her shift, followed her to her car, and executed her with the same cold calculation he'd used on Gregory 3 years before. The killing was personal, deliberate, designed to silence the one person who refused to let her son's case die. Security cameras throughout downtown St. Louis captured Wilson's movements, creating a digital trail that police followed straight to his arrest. The technology that hotels and businesses installed to prevent crime finally worked, giving investigators the evidence they needed to put Wilson behind bars. But it came too late to save Latatia's life. Wilson confessed to killing Latia within hours of his arrest, admitting to the execution-style murder that silenced a mother's quest for justice. But when detectives asked about Gregory's murder, Wilson's story changed. He denied involvement, claimed he didn't know Gregory, insisted he had nothing to do with the 2020 shooting that started this whole tragedy. Sometime between midnight and dawn on May 3rd, 2023, someone creeps through the darkness to Gregory Stewart's memorial in East St. Louis. They carry a standard city street sign, the kind that marks intersections throughout America, but this one has a different purpose. She writes about feeling hopeful, about new information coming to light, about justice finally being within reach. The post gets dozens of comments from people offering support and prayers, but none of them can save her from what's coming. Wilson's arrest happens 24 hours after he murders Latia, when someone reports him flashing a gun near downtown St. Louis. Police chase him through the streets as he desperately tries to escape, throwing his weapon onto a building's roof during the pursuit. The same technology that failed to prevent Latatia's murder finally works to capture her killer. Within hours of his arrest, Wilson confesses to executing Latia in the parking garage. He admits to waiting for her, admits to shooting her multiple times, admits to silencing the woman who wouldn't stop asking questions about her son's murder. But when detectives ask about Gregory, Wilson's story changes completely. He denies involvement, claims ignorance, insists he never knew Gregory Stewart existed. Prosecutors charged Deshaun King Wilson with first-degree murder in Latia Stewart's death, but Gregory's case file remains buried in a stack of unsolved homicides. The same man who confessed to executing a mother in a parking garage somehow has nothing to do with her son's murder 3 years earlier. The legal system treats these killings as separate incidents despite overwhelming evidence connecting them. Gregory Stewart's murder officially remains unsolved. Another cold case in East St. Louis, where justice goes to die. Detective Props still holds the file, still claims the investigation is active, but no arrests have been made and no suspects have been named. The case that consumed Latatia's life for 3 years continues consuming her family's hope for closure. The Stewart family knows Wilson killed both Gregory and Latia, but knowing and proving are two different things in a courtroom. Street sources whispered his name in connection with Gregory's murder long before he executed Latia. The timing of the street sign, the execution-style killing, the neighborhood connections all point to one conclusion that prosecutors refuse to pursue. Evidence that could link Wilson to Gregory's murder sits in police files, untested and unexplored. The mysterious car spotted near Gregory's house that night. Wilson's presence in the East St. Louis area during the time of the shooting. Witness statements that were never properly investigated. All of it gathering dust while a killer faces charges for only half his crimes. May Gilbert buries her daughter and picks up the fight that cost Latia her life. At 70 years old, she becomes the family's voice for justice, organizing vigils, speaking to media, demanding answers from authorities who seem content to let Gregory's case fade away. She knows the risks, knows what happened to Latia, but refuses to let fear silence her family's truth. The death threats start immediately after May begins speaking publicly about Wilson's connection to both murders. Anonymous callers tell her to stop asking questions, to accept what happened and move on, to think about her remaining family members' safety. But May has already lost a daughter and grandson to violence. She has nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. Community pressure mounts for May to stay quiet and let the legal system handle Wilson's prosecution. People who supported Latatia's fight now urge May to step back, claiming her activism might hurt Wilson's trial for Latatia's murder. But May understands what they don't. Without public pressure, Gregory's case will disappear forever into the bureaucratic maze of unsolved homicides. May refuses to let her grandson become another forgotten victim of street violence. She continues Latatia's social media campaigns, maintains the Facebook groups, keeps Gregory's story alive in local media. Every interview is a risk, every public appearance a potential target. But May won't let Wilson's crimes be minimized or forgotten. Wilson's trial for Latatia's murder gets delayed repeatedly as his defense team files motion after motion, seeking every possible advantage in a case where their client already confessed. Each delay is another month of uncertainty for the Stewart family, another month where justice remains just out of reach. The legal system that failed to keep Wilson locked up now fails to prosecute him efficiently. Detective Props stops returning May's phone calls entirely, treating the family like nuisances rather than victims seeking justice. The same detective who promised Latia that Gregory's case was a priority now acts like the family doesn't exist. His silence speaks louder than any words about how seriously authorities take unsolved murders in East St. Louis. The community that watched Gregory grow up continues protecting his killer through strategic silence. 3 years after his murder, witnesses still refuse to come forward, still claim they saw nothing, heard nothing, know nothing. Their fear of retaliation outweighs their desire for justice, leaving Gregory's case trapped in a cycle of silence and inaction. Justice delayed becomes justice denied as months turn into years without resolution. Wilson sits in jail awaiting trial for Latatia's murder while Gregory's case grows colder. The family watches other cases get solved, other killers get convicted, while their loved ones remain statistics in a system that has forgotten their names. 2 generations of the Stewart family have been destroyed by violence that could have been prevented. Gregory's children grow up without their father, never knowing the man who dreamed of rap stardom and worked multiple jobs to support them. They'll never hear his voice again, never feel his hugs, never see him at their graduations or weddings. Latatia's other children lose their mother to the same violence that took their brother. The woman who fought tirelessly for Gregory's justice becomes a victim herself, leaving behind a family traumatized by loss and a community that failed to protect her. Her death silences the strongest voice demanding accountability for Gregory's murder. The ripple effects of unsolved murders extend far beyond the immediate victims. Gregory's children will grow up knowing their father's killer walks free. Latatia's surviving children live with the knowledge that seeking justice cost their mother her life. May Gilbert fights alone against a system designed to forget families like hers. The Stewart family's quest for truth continues despite overwhelming obstacles and personal costs. They know Wilson killed both Gregory and Latia, but the legal system treats these murders as unconnected incidents. Their fight for justice becomes a fight for recognition, for acknowledgement that their loved ones' lives mattered enough to demand answers. May Gilbert lost her daughter and grandson to the same killer, but she's still fighting while most of you will close this video and forget their names. Hit subscribe if you believe some stories are too important to forget. Then comment, their names matter. Or maybe you think murdered families are just entertainment for your algorithm. Go ahead. Tell us why their pain isn't worth your subscription. Why their fight for justice doesn't deserve your support. We'll wait.